Today, something that we're going to see is about the legal aspects in the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. So, why medical termination of pregnancy? And in India, why is it so very important that we talk about this act? So, something that we should know that even this act has its roots in the Indian Constitution. So, this time I'm not going to tell you where. It's your duty to go and figure it out. Yeah. So that's a little homework for y'all. But to just start with something that we should know, that maternal deaths have been happening. And to reduce the number of maternal deaths and to ensure that there is safe abortion that happens, this act came into being. Okay. And something that we should also know, that in terminologies that you use for maternal death, it's called morbidity. Okay. And because the morbidity was higher, there was a need to look into why morbidity was higher. That the total understanding was, when medical termination of pregnancy is not being done properly in the right uh, time or in the right way, that has caused death of many people. So it is both an inclination to the benefit of the mother and the child. So this is something that you will listen to throughout the session. It's for you to know that the well-being of the mother and the well-being of the child is something that is very core and important when you look into medical termination of pregnancy. Okay. Yeah. The risk to the child, in case if it occurs, there are abnormalities that are going to happen before the birth of the child or something like that. So then it is allowed, it is permissible. So as you all know, there are places where girl children are sorry, the fetus itself is being killed, right? So feticide happens. Some people do it for the male child, some people do it for the female child. So all of this is something that we'll have to look into it a little detail to see when it is permissible, when it is not, when it is right in the eyes of the law. So it's very easy to talk rules and law and say uh, we have a right to decide about the number of children in our family and all, right? But as far as the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act is concerned, it is the right of the woman who's going to bear the child. It is about her future. It is about her um, living with the child and also bearing the child. So it is totally upon the woman who is actually bearing the child. And it is for her benefit that the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act came to be. Yeah. Something that we should also know, that in certain cases, the abnormalities in a child could be detected very late, in a very later stage. And when that happens, it is very difficult to actually give life to that child. Just imagine if there is a child who has a lot of physical abnormalities and is born, and in this world, for the child to survive after the parents or even when the parents are alive is really a big challenge. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that as social work students, you all would have seen quite a number of children who are disabled, who have very challenging life, right? So when the detection happens late, but still there is a possibility to save the life of the woman and also ensure that this child has its own um, uh, decent way of getting away with all the pressure that the child is going to have in the future, there can be medical termination of pregnancy that can happen. Also, on the flip side, in case if a female is bearing a child because of rape and she did not actually carry it along with her, it's going to be a burden, though being called as a victim is always there behind the scenes. Bearing the child of a victimized situation will continue to have a lot of trauma for her. So thereby, the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act will help her to ensure that abortion happens and safe abortion happens in accordance with law and in accordance also with நம்மளுடைய medical doctors உடைய பரிந்துரைக்கு ஏற்ப the proper way of getting an abortion done. Okay, right. So something that we should know, when is it early termination, when is it late termination? Okay, 12 weeks, below 12 weeks, it is early termination. see, whether it's an early termination or a late termination, uh, I tell you, it is almost like doing a proper delivery of a child. Okay, so what a female undergoes is not just like an ordinary surgery that you remove a cyst, or you remove a boil, or you remove a small overgrowth. It's not that. Okay, it's literally undergoing the whole process of giving birth to a child. It's almost partial um, process of delivering a baby. Okay, so be it early or late termination, the process that the female undergoes is that serious. And that is why even the judiciary looks in for the medical practitioners to give in their advice of whether termination being done is appropriate or not appropriate. So why is it being looked into? Risk factors to the female who's bearing the child. Okay, so 12 weeks, below 12 weeks now, the risk factor is a little less. But if it's beyond 12 weeks, somewhere between 20 weeks, the risk factor is more. And when it goes up to 24th week, it's almost like semi-delivery. Okay, so please know that this is something that you have to look into. When I go back to the future slides, you will get to know why am I insisting on the 12 weeks and the 20 to 24 weeks. Okay, right. Something that you should also know is that what are the grounds for legal abortion in India? Okay, when can you say that the abortion is happening with a legal um, sanction, with a legal permission? Okay, when is it allowed? Socially, if there is a contraceptive failure or a pregnancy failure, then it is permitted. Okay, eugenic reasons. What are eugenic reasons? If there are risk of abnormalities that could happen to the female or the fetus, the female who is bearing the child or the fetus, understanding that there could be physical diseases or issues, or deformalities, or even if it's on the psychological side. So please understand that, as we also saw in the previous presentation on child labor, of how intensive the law sees or looks into the psychological health or the mental health of be it child labor, or also the female who is bearing the fetus, as in the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Mental health is something that's very seriously looked into in the eyes of law. Okay, so what happens is that in accordance with law, if the medical board, I will also talk about what is a medical board. The medical board is a constitution of a gynecologist, a pediatric doctor, a radiologist or a sonologist, and anybody else who is um, uh, called out by the state government to say that they will be a part of the medical board. So people who have an expertise on gynecology and pediatricians will be a part of the board, along with it a radiologist and a sonologist, and anybody else who is being called out by the state government will be people who are a part of the medical board. Okay, so recently also we've uh, had the doctors, the government doctors of our state, get a circular of forming a fresh medical board, which will actually give their recommendations to medical termination of pregnancy even before the termination happens. Therapeutic reasons, if there's a risk to the life of the woman. Okay, so the child and the woman's life is seen of great importance. Humanitarian reasons, as I already mentioned, if it's by some victimization that the uh, pregnancy happens, then medical termination of pregnancy can be done legally. Okay, now who can do a medical termination of pregnancy? RMP is a registered medical practitioner. Okay, now who is a registered medical practitioner? I'll let you know in the future, but there are certain specifics. Not an ordinary doctor who just finishes medical exam can call themselves as a registered medical practitioner. Okay, so I will tell you what qualifies to call a person as a registered medical practitioner, right? So where can you get it done? So if the person is a registered medical practitioner, individual practitioner, அவங்களே ஒரு clinic வச்சிருக்காங்கன்னா கூட, they have to get a license for termination of pregnancy from a licensed hospital. So hospital also has to get a license to do medical termination of pregnancy. Okay, so not all hospitals can do it unless and until they get the license through. Okay, that setup should be there to do a proper termination of the pregnancy. Next, who can get the abortion done? The mother can get it done, provided there is some emotional, psychological, or um, issues that are going to affect her, or it can also be an anomaly of the fetus. What is an anomaly of a fetus? We expect the child to be, say, if the child is a 3-month fetus, we might, as medical practitioners will expect the growth of the child to be to that extent. When they do the radiology and the sonology and all of that, they will get to know. So when they know that the natural growth of the child is not in the formation or the way that it has to be, then it is called an anomaly. Nama expect pandrom, ana the expectation is different. That is an anomaly. So when the fetus has any kind of an anomaly, then the mother can go in for an abortion. Okay, so emotional, physical, psychological anomaly to the fetus, or if there is a threat to the life of the mother can decide to get herself aborted. Okay, right. Next, what are the different methods that are legally permissible to do an abortion? Okay, so this is a little medically legal. So I hope there won't be any great queries because I've just simplified them down. If the fetus is 7 to 9 weeks, 7 to 9 weeks is the formation of the fetus in the womb of the mother. Abdi irukum patchathula, they can just give tablets or medical management to see that the fetus is removed, comes out automatically. If the fetus is 12 weeks, up to 12 weeks, that is 9th week length, 12 weeks, suction method is being used, or vacuum aspiration method is being used. DNC normally solvanga, this suction and vacuum aspiration is much better than the DNC method. Okay, because the remains will not be there or create any future complications. Something else that you should know is that 12 weeks, after 12 weeks, what happens from the 12th week to the 20th week? If you have to do an abortion, what is the methodology that they use or is supposed to be used? Up to 12 weeks, you should, as per the 1971 Act and 2020, there is an amendment bill. One house has passed it, the other house is still pending to give its assent. Most probably it will be out anytime. Okay, so I'm also telling you what is futuristic and also what is existing. What is existing is that you have to get a signature of 2 registered medical practitioners to say that 20 weeks aanalum in the fetus terminate பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்ற signature வாங்கினாதா, permission வாங்கினாதா, you can do a medical termination of pregnancy. But the futuristic aspect of it is difficult to find people who are licensed and people who are some profound enough to actually understand and give advice of a medical termination of pregnancy as registered medical practitioners. So what the law has understood is that we'll have to reduce it to 1 to make it a little easier for an access for medical termination of pregnancy that can be done. Okay, so that is the amendment, and it soon, once it's being passed by the house, it will be in force. Okay, something that you should know, that 20 weeks it's almost like a child literally ready to be delivered. Okay, it's almost in that stage. So what happens then? We cannot do a medical termination of pregnancy just with the signature or the acceptance of a registered medical practitioner. If the female has to do a medical termination of pregnancy, there is no other means but to approach the courts and to get an order from the court telling that the medical board has accepted, or it has been recommended that medical termination of pregnancy can happen. And I would also give you certain scenarios where people have approached the courts for medical termination of pregnancy and they've got appropriate orders. Okay, something that is interesting in the new amendment bill that's being passed in the one house and spending before the other house, is that 2 registered medical practitioners for pregnant women who work along with pregnant women should ensure that there is a certification. So in the previous session that in the previous statements that I told you, 1971 Act படி என்னன்னா உங்களுக்கு 20 weeksக்கே உங்களுக்கு 2 registered medical practitioners தேவைப்பட்டுச்சு. But the amendment gave it a little என்ன சொல்றது, eased it out a little better for termination of pregnancy and brought it to 1 registered medical practitioner. But what the amendment bill has done is that instead of approaching the courts for the 20 weeks, let us push that to the 24th week. The amendment has brought about 2 registered medical practitioners. But the present scenario until it's being passed is that you only have to approach the courts if it's beyond 20 weeks. Okay. And something that you should know in basic is that even if you go to the court of law, the court of law will always look forward for the expertise of the medical practitioners. So they will send it to the medical board, ask them for back and forth questions to see if it is beneficial to the child, the fetus that is to be born, and also to the woman or the girl who is bearing the fetus. Okay. So why approach the courts? Yeah, this is something that we should know. It's very easy to say approach the courts, but why should we approach the courts in scenarios like this? Certain women get to say that it is my right to decide whether I have to bear the child or not. Why should the court decide? The court is something that is tertiary in nature. So why should they be involved into my personal life? It is not. So something that you should seriously understand is that Section 5 of the MTP Act says that only for reasons of saving the life of the mother and ensuring that there is less amount of morbidity that happens. Though there are many cases that come before the court after the 20-week gestation period, it is very essential to see that you do not lose a life just like that. And you cannot do a panchayat within the family to say the girl side will say that they want the fetus, the boy side will say they don't want the fetus. The girl will be in a lurch, not knowing where to, give an inclination to, but she will want to bear the child. Yeah. So in scenarios like this, where is the solution? So when it's 20 weeks, it's even more very critical to do a medical termination of pregnancy. So that is why, in accordance to the Act, it is permitted, but it's permitted with the court's intervention after 20-week gestation. Okay. And why approach the courts? When there's a late diagnosis of the fetal anomalies, what can be done? What do you think can be done? When the parents are told by the doctor that the child is not going to come out in a human form, it's going to come in a very disformed figure, or there is already a lot of trauma that the child has undergone that has meant it will certainly have mental abnormalities, or will be crippled, or there are very many anomalies that could happen. So when it is lately diagnosed, what can happen at the 20th week? Doctors will not have the ability. If we give the ability to the doctors, what could happen is a lot of misuse. Yeah. So to avoid all of that, courts need to be approached. Okay. So what is the solution that the courts can give? It can give the affected party the appropriate decision to ensure that medical termination of pregnancy happens in the safest way and in the best way possible. Okay. And please know, as I already mentioned, the court will approach the medical board and people who have that expertise to actually give feedback of medical termination, of a flag off for a medical termination to be done or not. So in short, of what and all I've told you, I've just put it into a small table for you to understand. When it's up to 12 weeks, whatever is in blue is something that is presently applicable. Whatever is in red is futuristically applicable after it's being passed by the Rajya Sabha. Okay. So up to 12 weeks, advice of one doctor is essential at the given moment. Later also, it is one doctor only. So that has no change. While 12 to 20 weeks, advice of 2 doctors is the present scenario, but once it's being passed, advice of 1 doctor is sufficient. 20 to 24 weeks, it's not allowed at all as far as the old MTP Act is concerned. But as far as the MTP Act amendment bill that is present, 2 doctors can actually give um, the reasons of the vulnerability of the case and then get a MTP done. But for 24 weeks, MTP Act 1971 does not permit MTP to happen. But because of the rise of cases of 20 to 24 weeks and beyond 24 weeks, the need to bring about an amendment came to being. Okay, so the law is pretty sensitive of the present scenario that is happening and is so concerned. The law is created for the society, right? It's not created for the animals that are there. It's created for the society. So depending upon the need of the society, amendments are being done. Okay, and it's very good to know that the medical board is established so that they give their recommendations for a medical termination of pregnancy to happen. Now, during any time of the pregnancy, if one doctor, uh, there is a one doctor should actually see if what they are doing, whether it falls under 1971 or even the amendment, doesn't matter. For example, you are the doctor and the female comes to you and you know that if you're not going to do that process, the woman is going to die. So at any given stages like that, medical termination of pregnancy can be done, provided the doctor should maintain records of what that case scenario is. Why was it so critical that they had to do a medical termination of pregnancy? So that is what will save the life and the skin of the doctor later when questioned as to why medical termination of pregnancy was done. Okay. So please know that any time during the pregnancy, it can be done, provided it's a very serious case and it ought to be documented. Immediate document panna mudiyadhu, but after the whole process is over, it is essential that they document it. Okay, because for later questioning, they'll have to respond back. Something that we should also know about the 1971 Act is that consent of a female is very, very, very important if they are more than 18 years. And if they are minors, then their guardians, okay, should actually give a flag off. Now, something that you should know of who can perform a medical termination of pregnancy, as I already mentioned, a registered medical practitioner, who's a person who's been on doing cases like this or working with um, uh, under the gynecological department for about 6 months or so. Okay, and the experience it's not considered. Okay, and in case of a little more number of a gestation period, the registered medical practitioner can have one year of experience with the gynecological under the gynecological department. MD DGO பண்ணிருக்கிறவங்க do have the capacity to do termination of pregnancy. Now, what happens when it is only up to 12 weeks? Okay, so please know that at least 25 medical termination of pregnancy should be done by the registered medical practitioner who is going to touch a woman and do a termination of pregnancy where it is up to 12 weeks. Okay, beyond that, if the gestation period is up to 12 weeks, as I mentioned in this, let me look out for the pointer. Yeah, in this, when you see, sorry, in this, when you see the little 1, 2, 3s that I've given you, if it's up to 12 weeks, one registered medical practitioner can do it with either could be a 6-month house job person, could be 1 year experience, or could be experience of doing MTPs. Okay, and where 5 is done independently, that is something that you should also take note of. When it's 12 to 20 weeks, 2 or more medical practitioners with the MD DGO or being a registered medical practitioner with 1 year of experience or a 6 months house job is sufficient. Something that you should know that comes along with the amendment that has happened is this, that something extra than 1971 Act that is being looked into, the need is being seen, is the privacy of the woman. So, mundi medical termination of pregnancy nadanduchina, nothing was looked into for the privacy of the woman to be kept. Now, even cases when decided, they are not calling out. Now, for example, cases, if I file a case against, example, Shakti Prabha ma'am, it'll be called as Roseann Rajan versus Mrs. Shakti Prabha. Okay, so the names are known. There's nothing called privacy. Everything comes out in the media. Everything comes out, with the names and the identity of the person. There is a need to ensure that you give privacy to the person who undergoes medical termination of pregnancy. And outrightly, you can't talk their stories. It is their personal life. Okay, so privacy of a woman is given very, very, very great importance. And please know that even the courts have named the cases as A versus whatever the state, or A versus this person, or A versus the medical board, whatever. Okay, they have ensured to see that no information of the woman is being spoken of in the open, which needs to be uh, confidential. Okay, so confidentiality is something that's looked into. And something that's also looked into is not just, normally if you call out medical termination of pregnancy, it's normally thought that only medical termination of pregnancy can be done only for married women. So that's been broken. The word woman is being used, and it's not been broken down into married or unmarried. So a woman is a woman. Okay, whether it's a child, an adolescent who is bearing a child also falls under the category of woman. Okay, as far as she can bear the child. If there are minors and they cannot decide whether they want to bear the child or not. Okay, and I'm pretty sure all of you are aware that there are these trial and errors that school children do, or adolescent children do, because they really want to experiment, because they're used to seeing a lot of content that actually urges them to experiment. So this is also a bane of the technology that we have, but it has to be channelized in the right way. So in issues where a minor girl bears a child, can she decide to continue to bear the child? Can she decide to do a medical termination of pregnancy? It has been understood that a guardian's support should be there. That could be the parent, or could be the person under whose control the child is. Okay, so 2 to 7 years imprisonment happens if the abortion is conducted by one or more than one registered medical practitioner without any of the processes that are supposed to be followed. Okay, so please know 2 to 7 years imprisonment is something that's huge, and where utmost detailing has to be looked into by the by the practitioner even before doing the MTP. Okay, 1 year imprisonment, fine, or both, if the registered medical practitioner reveals the identity of the woman. If I am a doctor, a registered medical practitioner who can do medical termination of pregnancy, and I communicate saying that so and so person did a medical termination of pregnancy, I will be imprisoned for 1 year, fine, and both. Okay. Please know that there are rules for medical termination of pregnancy, and even uh, these rules actually bring out what should be done, what should not be done. Okay, so if you actually see the act, you may not see most of what I'm talking. You should also see if there are rules. So any law or act that you're seeing, please see if there are rules also. So this is another tip on law. Right. Reasons for medical termination of pregnancy act. Okay. Uh, and something as to why actually brought about an amendment. Why should we look for a change in the existing law? It is the right of the woman to decide whether she wants to bear the fetus or not, because she is only bearing it. It is her body. She is undergoing everything to actually give birth to the child. Okay, to procreate or to abstain, to have a child or not to have a child is her decision. So that right is something that the act gives to the woman. Okay. Second, the need and demand for the gestational limit to be increased. And I said, and as I already mentioned, 20 to 24 weeks, there have been very late anomalies being found. So the need has been there for a permission for a legal medical termination of pregnancy to happen. And so that is why. Okay. Then, to ensure that there is safety and well-being of the woman and the child. Okay. And something that's very beautiful in what the law has seen is now we hear a lot of live-in relationships, which has been accepted by courts. And those children are also, the recent judgments of various courts call out those children also to be legitimate children, even if they are in a live-in relationship. So something that this new amendment brings out is that uh, they do not call the person as a husband. The phrase of married woman or a husband is changed into woman or a partner. Okay. So the word partner gives a very broader perspective rather than just calling that person as a husband. If you call a person a husband, it should be a legal married relationship, right? So the broadened understanding of the need of the hour and how the society is progressing, whether it's good progression or not, that is secondary. But that is also being looked into by the amendment that's going to come up. Yeah. And protection of privacy of the woman, of what has happened and what she has undergone. Okay. So if that is contravened, as I already mentioned, it's 1 year imprisonment with fine or both. Now, this is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Please know that we have something called the Indian Penal Code. EP code in all cases you hear about IPC. The IPC also has provisions for criminal abortion. So what is criminal abortion? When abortion is done illegally, it amounts to criminal abortion in simple understanding, not in accordance with the MTP Act or rules. So medical termination of pregnancy, when it's done not in accordance with the MTP Act or rules, automatically, even these are sections that will cause a punishment for the criminal abortion that happens. Okay. I'll just walk you through a few case scenarios. I hope there's time, just few minutes. Yeah. I'll just walk you through a few case scenarios to just make you understand how the courts have passed judgments on medical termination of pregnancy. This is one case in 2009 that actually spoke of reproductive rights. Even the UN speaks of reproductive rights and conceptions and all of that. But that's not been seriously taken about. But something that's so beautiful that all these judgments that I'm going to speak to you about are Supreme Court judgments. And it's nice to note that reproductive rights is something that has been spoken about in 2009, right? And yeah, this is one case where it called out that if a female fetus is there, a normal female fetus, and an MTP is being done, it should be considered as a feticide. Normal fetus, and it's a female fetus. If there was a medical termination of pregnancy that has happened, it should be considered as a feticide, and the practitioner and also people who have been medical practitioner and also the people who have been a part of it, even if it is a mother, have committed an offense. Okay. Right. And please know, as I already told you, the medical professionals should have proper records to say that even if they say it came in an emergency, so we did the medical termination of pregnancy because it was such a critical case. Okay, where are the records? What has happened? You should have records of maintaining the patient came at this time. This is what happened. This is the time we decided. This is the time we did the surgery, and it was out. Yeah. So it is very, very, very important to actually have the records, and courts need evidence for you to say that you have not committed an offense. So always keep this at the back of your mind. Okay, this is a very famous case in 2010. What had happened in this was it was very easy to say that in 20 weeks inducement of labor had been done, which was earlier, and it was told that the petitioner herself, the woman who was carrying the baby herself, had to undergo the preterm inducement of labor. Okay, so the inducement was done and the labor happened. Now, they looked for records. Is a record there to prove that the opinion was formed, because it is preterm? Okay, when it's preterm, it is all planned, right? So when it is planned, you should have better records. And when there are no records, it is gross negligence. It is negligence on the part of the medical practitioner. Okay, so please know that records is something that ought to be there, right? Another thing, when you see a victim of rape, and you also know that she's mentally retarded, what happens? In this case, there was a victim of rape who was mentally retarded, but they found it at a very later stage. So what happened is that the court directed that the mother also should be able to take care of herself and the child, and it's re-traumatizing them through the trauma. So the court directed that she be paid compensation, and hereafter it is very essential that in cases of where you know the victim is not fit in a condition to hold a baby or to live her life, because it's challenging for her to live her life and also for the child that's going to come out of a mistake that she had not done voluntarily, right? So the court looked into it as negligence on the part of the state, authorities of the state, and they ensured that compensation is given, and continuous monitoring of her life. Okay, right. So this is one case, one very interesting case where the doctor filed a order of the court and said that, see, I aborted because the female who bore the child gave me the consent. Now, the actual story was this. When the court investigated, looked into the matter, the actual story was this, that she and her, it was her lover, okay, and his family had taken her to the hospital telling it's a normal checkup. They have sedated her, given her some medicines and all of that, and they did the abortion. Only later she got to know that medical termination of pregnancy was done. Okay. Now, can the doctor still continue to say that I did it in good faith and it was her consent, even if she was above 18? So the court wonderfully said that you have not acted in good faith because she was a major, and you said you have also played within the role along with the family, uh, posing it to be a normal checkup, but did a medical termination of pregnancy, and then ensured that it was a mistake and brought it out as a mistake. Okay. Something else that also is very interesting, in 2018, for a minor daughter, both the parents had mentioned that she's pregnant and we do not want her to carry the child. So when it came up to the court, it was after 20 weeks. Okay. And then, as I already told you, the courts will always rely on the medical practitioners for their advice. So the medical board said that the condition of the victim is not that great. And if you're going to do medical termination of pregnancy now, it will have a greater impact on her. Okay. So then the court continued to look into the matter and saw that abortion can be done provided the medical board gives the flag off. So even in certain circumstances, the court cannot decide uh, of what is best. It is only the medical practitioners who can say that the person will continue to have a healthy life. So as I already mentioned, please know that it's very important as far as medical termination of pregnancy to see when can you do it, only if it is going to benefit the woman and the fetus and not harm their life. That is something that's very primarily looked into, and that is something that has to be taken care of, be it medical practitioners or even social workers who are going to accompany. Example, you'll get a case where a girl is being victimized and is suddenly pregnant. Okay, and you take her to the government hospital, and government hospital, the doctors say medical termination of pregnancy has to be done. Please don't sign off and say, yeah, okay, I am guardian, we will do. Please be very, very, very careful. Okay, you should know when it is permissible, when it is not. Appropriate authorities have to be informed. Her legal guardians, though you are the person who's counseling and working along with them, you cannot decide upon the life of the girl. Okay. And if there are various other circumstances, courts can be approached to get the order to do a medical termination of pregnancy. I hope I've thrown some light on Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act and the rules and the amendment that's going to come up in the near future that's going to be in force. So I hope it helps you all to assist women who truly need medical termination of pregnancy, and even guide people of what is legal and what is not, and create that awareness amongst our community to see that we have a very healthy and a safe community to live in.